If you want to be a great recruiter or a great team leader, do more asking of great questions and do more listening and be more interested in other people, and you'll recruit more and you'll lead better. And that's how you're going to go where you want to go.
Welcome to Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and this is where high-performing entrepreneurs and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome to Shift. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and today we have the privilege of speaking with an extraordinary entrepreneur and absolute industry icon. Our guest began as a real estate agent, working long hours with very little freedom, made the shift to direct selling, achieving a life-changing success before the age of 30. Today, he stands as one of the industry's top recruiters, having personally enrolled, get this, over 1,900 people, built a team of more than 400,000 entrepreneurs and over 2 million customers. He has documented and shared his wisdom through 4 best-selling books, Building an Empire, Money Mindset, and Untrapped Freedom Manifesto. And his passion for helping others build their own empires and their families achieving true freedom is absolutely inspiring. Beyond all the professional achievements, I absolutely love how he's dedicated to aligning his business life with his faith and his service to others. Today, we get to explore the power behind his over 25 years of transforming personal and financial growth. Please help me welcome to the show, Brian Carruthers. Brian, how you doing, brother?
Good morning. Good to see you, Blake.
You as well. Thank you for taking the time. I know we're in the middle of a super busy day, so I appreciate you being with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Always want to share.
Well, I guess I want to start, Brian, by diving into some of your story and some of the moments. But before we get into kind of the story stuff, let's start with kind of the serious question. I just want to know, have you picked up any new baseball cards you're super excited about right now?
If I could turn my camera and you could see my desk, you would see all the stuff that's getting sent off for grading right now. So yes, it's I don't want to say it's a healthy addiction, but it's an addiction, that's for sure.
Well, I know we got into some casual conversation at that industry event, and I got to tell you, inspired me. So right after that conversation, I did come home and I did go up to the attic and I did pull out my old baseball cards, sat down with my son who's 8, and it was the moment. I mean, I saved these things for like whatever, decades, and started walking him through it. And I think I held his attention for all of like 3 minutes.
Yeah. How old is your son?
He just 8 years old.
Give him a few more years. My son did turn 18, but during COVID, he just turned 13, going on 14 when we both got into it together. And at that age, and they started becoming a little entrepreneur, and they can see there's money in the cards. It's funny because Men's Journal about a year and a half ago did a story on me about how I came up in cards as a teenager. I was a dealer doing shows and all that, and had distributorships with all the manufacturers. And then when I got into my adult life in my 20s, I stopped doing cards and got into real estate and started to invest in stocks. The same way I speculated on rookie cards, I started doing the same thing in stocks. And I did well in cards. I did really well in stocks. And now my son is learning through cards, and he's now getting into crypto and stocks and all that. So they kind of did a story about that, kind of that investor entrepreneurial life cycle with me and my son. Is a pretty cool story.
So 25 years for you in direct selling. I mean, that's an amazing journey. I'm sure there's a ton of moments in your story, but maybe let's spotlight just a couple of them. Maybe start by taking us back to, okay, real estate background, real estate agent, you were in a point, you made the transition. Share with us one of those moments when you went from kind of real estate to direct selling for the very first time that maybe led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so I was born into a real estate family. My parents built a massive real estate company with 35 offices when I was a kid, and sold it to Merrill Lynch in 81. And after their 5-year non-compete, started up a new company, thinking my brother and I, when we got out of college, might join them, which we did. And so in 1992, I graduated from Villanova with an accounting degree, never used it for anything. I jumped right into real estate. And somebody I knew from Villanova played football up there. That was from my hometown, reached out to me and wanted to show me a network marketing project, and I had no interest. But he insisted that I come hang out with them and have dinner, and I did. I pulled up in my used Ford Explorer I bought off my dad, And he shows up in a Mercedes convertible, and I'm like, what is going on? Okay. This guy he tried out for 3 NFL teams, didn't make it. So he was living in downtown Philly in a 1-bedroom apartment, driving a $20,000 car, making about $20,000 a year. And then he gets into network marketing, and now he's driving a new Mercedes convertible. I'm like, so as a young guy, that gets your attention. So I looked, and I discovered network marketing, and I got into that company, and I worked it pretty decently for 3.5 years. Didn't make any money, but I loved what I learned. I loved the model. It just wasn't coming together for me. And when I was 28 years old, I was trying to recruit an agent to come work for our real estate company in a new office I just opened up. And he tells me about how he's marketing this service to his clients and friends. And he showed it to me. And I'm like, no brainer. And I became a customer. He told me about how he said, Brian, I just got paid a couple $100 for signing you up. But more importantly, I'm going to get paid every month for the rest of your life, even if we never talk again. And I'm like, I know about what residual income is. I've never really experienced it like that. So I got involved with them. And 2.5 years in, and I made my first $1 million in that business. And I told my family I was going to leave real estate after that first year, or inside of that first year. They thought it was nuts. My mom called me and asked me if I was on drugs after she heard my decision. I said, Mom, you know me. I've never touched that stuff. I'm on to something big. And they just didn't get it. And so they never got it. Until I started making big money, and then they started, then they started leaving me alone. And then and I invited my parents. One of the biggest moments of my life, we were at Vegas for a convention, and I invited my parents because I was getting our company's $1 million ring for having earned that in a 12-month period. And they're at I forget what the venue was, but there was a skybox, and they were up in the skybox with some of the other, top earners and stuff like that. And I got my award on stage. And I gave a little talk, and then after it was over, or I went off stage, another speaker came up to close out the session. I went upstairs, and I was standing behind them. And when the last speaker for the session ended, everybody stood up, and my parents turned around. My dad looked at me, and he threw his arms around me, and he told me in my ear he had never been more proud of me in his entire life. It's hard to even describe what that meant. My whole life led to that moment. I think I was like 32 years old. So for all my life, I wanted to make my parents proud, and for them to be that proud, doing it in a vehicle that was not the family company, meant everything to me.
So I'm curious, right? When you were like in that moment, going against the family business, going against what is kind of like a mainstream vehicle, and you're first beginning into this new venture. Like, did you face challenges? Did you have doubt? Did you have any, second guesses? And what helped you make that shift and stay the course for so long in this path?
Well, I had been in network marketing for a number of years without success. So that probably would cause some people to have even more doubt. I knew what I knew. I saw enough success stories in the industry. I wanted the lifestyle of the successful network marketers because they had the time and the money. I know a lot of real estate agents that made a lot of money, but they had no time. I looked at network marketing leaders that helped people find their freedom. I've never met a real estate broker that helped somebody find their freedom. Like, no agents that work for a real estate broker have freedom. That's why I wrote my book, Untrapped. I didn't even think I was going to write a 4th book. But everybody says they want time freedom. But if you have to keep on trading your time for money, if you have to keep going out and selling more houses in the future to keep getting paid, then you're never going to have time freedom because you have to keep giving away your time to get more money because nobody can live without more money. And so I think that I got rid of the doubt early on in my career. I knew what I knew. I knew what I wanted. What's interesting for my situation, though, you see in network marketing a lot of rags to riches stories. Where people were up against the wall, they were broke, they needed some way to get out of their situation, and network marketing was their vehicle. Those are the stories you hear on stage a lot. I went from broke to, zero to hero kind of a thing. I was in a different scenario. I was a little bit time broke, but I was making 6 figures, so I wasn't like in a desperate way. But for me, I think the difference is I walked away from a 24 office, several thousand agent real estate company that was my namesake. Prudential Carruthers signs were all over Maryland, DC, and Virginia. Everybody knew me for that. So for me to walk away from that was harder than I think somebody who has no other options. And frankly, if I hit some roadblocks in my network marketing business, I could have very easily put my hat in my hand and walked back to my family and said, I'm back. Roll out the welcome carpet for me. I'm here. Forgive my absence. And they would have accepted me, I'm sure. So I could have easily quit network marketing. So I feel like the pat I would like to give myself on the back, because a lot of people don't really realize that, is that I stuck with it. When the going got tough, I didn't tuck my tail and run like most people in any situation do in network marketing. Whether you're broke or whether you're already successful, most people quit. So the fact that I stuck it out, even though I had a really easy safety net to run back to, I'm proud of myself for that. When I look back on the 28-year-old kid that made that irrevocable decision and made that commitment and did it.
You mentioned roadblocks, and although you have an amazing story, the income you reached by 30 years old, I know it wasn't instantly, but, fairly quick when it comes to entrepreneurship, a few years. But I just know, because I've been around long enough, that if you stay in this game for as long as you have at the level that you've played, like, you're going to go through some stuff. We all go through some stuff. So, you mentioned roadblocks. Like, take us to a moment that maybe was super challenging. And it could be at any point in your 25 years where maybe some of that negative self-talk, or maybe some of those questions of, oh, that real estate or that family name or that credential, started to sneak in. Like, take us to that moment, share, that moment and what helped you get through it.
Yeah. Well, and real quick, let me just go back a second. So I got into my current company at age 28. And like I said, I had some great success and made all that money by the time I was 30. And that's quick, but everybody needs to consider the backstory. So I got into network marketing at the age of 23.
Okay.
And I spent 4.5 years in the industry without making much money, but learning a lot. I was exposed to personal development. I was listening to Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Og Mandino, Mark Victor Hansen, and Jim Rohn. And so having all of that happen inside of me prepared me for the opportunity. So, comparison is a thief of joy. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, I'm going to compare myself to Brian or Blake or whoever. But you hear that story of when they got into that company and what they did, but what happened inside of them, what personal development growth did they go through before that opportunity arrived? So all that to say, to answer your question, in 2010, okay, so 11 years into my journey, one of my biggest players on my team that was my best friend left and went off into a new venture.
Okay.
And that was a shock to my system. I mean, we talked every day, multiple times a day for years. And when he left, there was a feeling of betrayal. And look, and looking back on it, he did what he wanted to do, what he felt like he had to do for himself and his family. So I don't blame anybody for decisions they have to make, but that hurt. I didn't question, am I going to stay? But you have wounds to lick, you have damage control, you have to decide how you're going to handle the situation. And, people's belief gets really weakened when they see somebody that they respect leave and go somewhere else. And I know that the network marketing profession is dealing with a lot of that right now. A lot of people that are coming and going and doing all kinds of different things. So as I look back on it, so let me pre-frame what I'm going to say right now. When I got into my company, it was 27 years old, and people that understand network marketing said, "Brian, you've missed the boat. It's old hat. You can't make money unless it's a startup, unless you're brand new, first in the door. You're not going to make any money." And I told people, I said, "I don't want a ground floor company because a lot of them never get off the ground, or if they do, they come right back down to the ground. I want a rock solid, proven company that's tapping into a ground floor industry." So I defied that myth by doing so well in a company that was already so long in the tooth when I joined it. So I hearkened back in 2010 on those conversations that happened 11 years prior when people told me I was wasting my time. So in 2010, the question people started asking is, have I missed the opportunity here? Do I need to go elsewhere? And I said the same thing. I said, the market is still blue ocean all out in front of us. We barely touched the surface of what we can do in this. So I stayed in the game. I stuck to my guns, and some people did, some people didn't. But here I am today, and 11 years, whatever it is now, it's 13 years later, and my business has grown tremendously. We're in great momentum right now. So I just hope that I believe that people need to plant their flag somewhere and leave it planted. You don't need to carry a flag, plant the tree. You don't plant a tree and then uproot it and move it around after it's already 50 feet high. You plant the tree. And that's some of the biggest advice I give to anybody. Warren Buffett has said the time to get all worried and reevaluate your position in the stock is not after you've purchased it. Evaluate the stock and make a decision whether you feel it's a good long-term play before you push the button to buy it. And then stick to your guns. Warren Buffett is an investor. He's not a trader. There's a lot of network marketers that are like day traders. They're like they can't keep their eye on, they can't keep their position for more than a day in a stock or more than an hour. And you take that on dog years or network marketing years. They might stay in a company for a year and then get bored, or they didn't get rich quick, and so they move on to the next thing. I want people to have long-term peace, joy, security. And you're going to have that not by rebuilding constantly. You're going to have it by, buying into. Tony Robbins was on the same stage at a GoPro event I did years ago, and he said something that was so profound. Backstage, he said, "The only way for a human to feel more alive is to be a part of something bigger than himself." And he said, "Obviously, you found that, and I have. When you buy into your company mission." Blake, I'm giving myself goosebumps right now. I got some small hairs that I don't.
You do. I always see that. So, I love it.
I go back to my first convention in Dallas, Texas, and I walked down from my seat way in the back up to the foot of the stage, and I looked out over all these seats in the arena, and I said, the founder of this company had a mission, and look where it is now, based on his vision, and he started to spread the word, and it started to grow. I said, his mission's my mission now. This is my company. It's not his company. This is my company. There's other people in it, but this is my company. And I'm going to go grow this, my company. It's my mission. I'm going to go grow it and make the mission of the company a reality. And that was 25 years ago. And so what my encouragement would be for anybody is look at the business that they're in, like not that they're a pawn in somebody else's game, but it's their game. Like own the game. It is your mission. It is your company. Yes, there are other lines of business that are not a part of your sales organization. So what? Cool. Let them draft behind you in that race car race. Like you be the lead. You be the lead driver.
I love the analogy of kind of the investor. I'd actually have never heard it put that succinctly within this industry, but I love that. Make the decision before, do the work before. Once you make the decision, like stay the course long enough to allow it to work. You're right. There are a lot of day traders within our space right now, and day traders never build the longevity that you have and that you're sharing as possible. Mission. So I really resonate with that word. I know you have kind of some personal philosophy today on really the higher importance than ever on like mission and having mission really be an anchor to desire and motivation. What do you mean by that? And more specifically, how does someone find that within themselves?
I've always had drive as an entrepreneur. As a kid, I would rake leaves, shovel driveways in the winter, cut lawns. At the beach, I would go crabbing and I would catch crabs. My mom would steam them up and I would go sell crabs door to door while they're still hot. I mean, I did car washes. I did whatever I could to make money to buy cars so I can actually go flip and sell those cars and make a profit. So I've always been a driven entrepreneur. What I've learned later in life is that there's a difference between being driven and being pulled by a greater vision that's bigger than you. I was driven by my selfish reasons. But when you find something that's going to pull you like a North Star, and you're being pulled toward it, and you can actually be driven and pulled at the same time. So it's great to have drive from behind, but pull from the front. You get there. I believe you get there twice as fast. And so the mission of my company is an important one because it's not self-serving. It's about helping other people, making other people's lives better. And most anybody in network marketing has a mission of their company, whether it's a health and wellness product to make people live longer or feel better, whether it's a skin cream that will make somebody look in the mirror and feel better about themselves by getting rid of wrinkles, whatever it is. They're all great missions. If you got to get involved with the one that resonates most with your heart. And then, maybe we can talk later on about this, but I've always been money motivated. I wanted to, early on when I first got into my company, I wanted to hit a certain rank. And when I hit that rank, I was going to buy myself a Rolex. Mm-hmm. I got a two-tone gold and stainless Daytona Rolex. It was like the hot watch at the time. And why did I want the Rolex? Because I wanted respect. I wanted to walk into a room, or I wanted somebody to look at me. I'm 5'8.5", about not even 150 pounds. I've never been big in stature, but I felt like if I put that watch on my wrist, I can command respect. People think, oh, he's successful. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all have reasons that maybe insecurities that we need to solve for or whatever. So I wanted that, and I hit the level and I got the watch. Sounds shallow for sure. But it was something that I felt I needed. Like, we all want love and respect. Mm-hmm. At 28 years old, that's what I felt like I needed. And so that drove me.
Brian, I resonate deeply with your story just because I'm aligned and very similar. I reached my first multi-seven-figure milestone. I bought the Rolex. But here's my question, and I've never asked anybody this directly. Do you think entrepreneurs and people need to go through the money season to get to the mission season? Do you think people need to go through that first part to achieve those milestones to get to that second part? Or do you think people can leapfrog to the second part? I've never asked anybody that question.
I've never had it asked, but what immediately comes to mind is when I've been teaching people about the why, whenever I'm on a stage and I talk about finding your why, every trainer in the industry tells people about why their why is important. Yep. Some people are like, your why has got to make you cry. Okay, whatever. But I believe most people don't have the right why that's going to cause them to build the business when it's not convenient. And so what I mean by that is, when I first got into my company, I was telling everybody from stage and on conference calls, hey, let me tell you why I'm here. When I get married, I want to be able to provide a great lifestyle for my wife and my kids. And I want to live in a nice house. And I want to put my kids in a private school. And it sounded so nice and altruistic and something that everybody can vibe with. So I wasn't lying. That was a part of my why. But my real why is I wanted to make a lot of money so people would respect me. Now, I could never say that from stage, because somebody would be like, oh, this guy's shallow. He's selfish. He's self-centered. So my real why of wanting love and respect, which is I equated in my mind to making a lot of money, therefore people would respect me. I never told anybody that until I turned 50 years old and I didn't care anymore. I tell people the truth now. So when I tell people about finding their why, okay, you got the one, I'm doing this for my kids. Oh, cool. Okay, you're not lying. But if that's your why and you're not making phone calls when you feel a little bit down, or you got a sore throat and you're supposed to be making your return phone calls to do your follow-ups, but I got a scratchy throat, or you don't go to your meeting because you see a dark cloud in the sky and you think it might rain, so you don't want to go to your event. If you're not building the business, doing what you're supposed to do, then you don't have the right why. Like, figure out the one that really makes you do it when you don't feel like doing it, because you're not going to go to the top. You're not going to make 6 or 7 figures only building the business when all your ducks in a row and there's nothing else on your agenda, and it's super convenient. This business, for most network marketers, is a business of convenience. When they've got nothing else going on, then they'll do the business. I made it where the business was priority. Like, I woke up thinking about and doing the business. I went to bed after I was done doing the business. Sometimes it was late at night because I was on the East Coast doing conference calls or 3-ways on the West Coast. So you got to be willing to pay the price. You got to step up to the counter of success and pay full retail. There's no shortcuts. Everybody wants to shortcut. I mean, show me the AI system. Show me this. Show me. Look, there's a lot of tools that have come and gone or evolved along the way. And there's new stuff coming down the pipeline right now, but it's never going to replace the need for each and all of us that want to win big. You've got to get in and you got to do the work when you don't feel like doing it.
Such great insights. And I think what I'm hearing just in your story and your experience that you're sharing with us is that why can change and it can evolve, and that's okay, right? That's okay. And maybe you don't tell the truth to everybody, or maybe you don't even realize the truth within yourself until you are a little older, or maybe on the other side of family, or maybe find a little faith, or maybe get humbled, or whatever seasons you got to go through to where you don't care.
I didn't answer the question. I apologize. So to answer your question, does somebody need to go through the money season to get through that first? That answer to that, all that backdrop to get to the point is, they got to figure out where their heart is. So I was, they got the personalities, like sharks are all about money, whales are about helping people, dolphins are about the fun, and urchins are all about the facts and all that. So who are you? Like, if you don't care that much about money, then your money season is not what you need to go through to get to the top. If you're a whale, if your drive in your life is all about helping and serving people, which is where I'm at now more than I was before. If you're already there, if that's how you're wired at age 25, then you don't need to go through the greedy money making season if that's not even your driver. If your driver is helping people and mission, then you don't need to go through money to get to mission. Maybe you start with mission and the money comes. So it all depends on who the person is.
I think that's a perfect answer and absolute truth. So I'm glad you went there. And for everybody that's listening, that's the bottom line, right? It's about you. It's about what drives you. And I love, Brian, how you said what pulls you. Get there twice as fast. So I think that's to me, I'm going to say that's the new mantra. Like, figure out what drives you, what's going to move you, what's your why. And then through that, figure out what also pulls you, what you're passionate about, where your heart is. You bring those two things together, you're going to excel. And it doesn't have to be the same thing as your mentor or the leader or the person you're following on social media. That's what moves them. Figure out what moves you. I love that. So thank you for sharing those stories. And I do smile because I know there's going to be a bunch of 25, 30-year-olds that, that Rolex and that Ferrari is going to move them, and that's okay. And I know there's going to be people like us that have been through all of that maybe are looking for that greater cause, that higher calling, or that greater fulfillment.
So here's how I justified my selfish season, because the model self-justifies. The only way you get the Rolex or the Ferrari is by helping other people. The amount of money that you make to be able to buy those toys is a direct reflection of the amount of lives that you've impacted by your product or your opportunity. So if somebody in network marketing is driving the Ferrari, if they got the big mansion, or they got this amazing lifestyle, they earned it. Not because they could have had some selfish, greedy reasons. Totally cool. They still only got it by helping other people. So that's why I love the money and the reward is just, in our industry, it's a true measuring stick for the amount of impact you've had on other people in a positive way. And it's what makes what we do amazing, right? Because it truly does change lives. I could talk mindset and mission with you all day long, Brian. I mean, that's definitely my wheelhouse. But I want to talk about some tactics here, because I saw the number 1900 and that's a giant number. So let me just clarify. 1900 personal enrollees. I just want to make sure I got the facts right. Yes. Yep.
Okay. So tips, guidance, like if you were to give kind of anybody on their entrepreneurial journey right now with indirect selling, like here's the tips when it comes to just recruiting, attraction today, right? In 2024, what tips come to mind?
My mind was always on recruiting. And I had an advantage because I grew up around it. The way my dad built his first real estate company as a kid, I watched him everywhere we went. We were at a restaurant, we were at a hotel, wherever we were. He always asked people the same question. Do you keep your, have you ever considered a career in real estate? Have you ever considered a career in real estate? He was a consummate recruiter into his real estate company, which is how he wound up with a couple thousand agents. So I kind of had an advantage or a head start just watching my dad do that. There's two ways, in network marketing, our goal is to get customers, build up a big customer base. You can either be an amazing salesperson, amazing prospector and salesperson, and go out and have millions of conversations, or you can go out and recruit an army of people that everybody's doing a little bit. So I was sold on the recruiting and team building concept. It's all about leverage, not being leveraged, but having leverage. And then from there, going back all these years, the tactics have always changed. The desire to do it, the commitment to recruiting never changed. I never wavered. I was always a major recruiter. You just never know where somebody's going to come from. The next platinum, diamond, grand poobah, whatever your rank is in your company. The next big leader could be the person pumping gas next to you later today at the gas station. Mm-hmm. So, the 3-foot rule, talk to anybody who comes within 3 feet of you. I had a 20-foot rule. Somebody was 20 feet away from me. I went over and talked to them. And at the end of the day, it's just, recruiting is a conversation. You got to be willing to start the conversation and find a way to say what you got to say. And you're never going to have the right words for everybody. And fear will stop most people in their tracks. I don't know what to say to that person pumping gas. So then they freeze up and then the person drives away. All that to say, when you want something bad enough, whether it's the Rolex or whether it's the charity you want to support or whatever it is, when your why is strong enough, you'll do what's uncomfortable for you. And I had many conversations to get 1,900 recruits.
Do you think those are the same strategies that work today?
It's the same mindset, the same hustle. Sometimes it's a different tool. Like I don't hand out magazines anymore, but we have a digital one I can send out through our app. I can send a video link instead of sending somebody a VHS videotape. I had to cram into a priority mail envelope and send it out for $6 across the country and wait a week for them to get it and watch it. Now I can send somebody a link by text and they can watch it on the spot and I can see if they opened it and how much they watched immediately after. So technology and tooling have improved tremendously. And it's going to improve next year, I'm sure. There's all kinds of stuff coming down the pipeline. I just encourage everybody, don't let new tools or new technology displace the disciplines and the process. It still has to be a conversation that starts with piquing their interest and somewhere down the line leading them to signing up on the dotted line, joining your team. And then another piece of advice I give people is when somebody signs up with you, the conversation's not done. They've done nothing more than signed a written permission slip for you to keep recruiting them, because until they're making full-time income in your company, they're this close to quitting at any given time. They're one no away from ghosting you and never hearing from that person again. So just because they signed up and gave you a couple $100 or whatever to join you does not mean you're done recruiting them. You got to keep re-recruiting your recruits until they're making really great money.
Has a ratio appeared for you when you look at this funnel, so to speak, of the recruiting game, of conversations to tools to enrollments to leaders to people that end up being your partners long term? Like, what does that ratio look like in your world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not wired as an analytical type of a guy. I'm an instinct guy. Like whether it's investing in stocks, like I'm not good at reading balance sheets and getting into the weeds on different things, which people are like, what? You've got how many millions of dollars invested in all these different things that you don't know how to, something I don't know how. It's just not what I get excited about. So I don't know what the stats are. I don't know what the ratio is. I think that because I've had so many conversations, talked to so many prospects, my ratio might be slightly better than the average person in our business model, but not much more. I just, Jim Rohn, you talking about him, he said, you could be recruiting 3 out of 10 and I could be recruiting 1 out of 10, but I'm still going to beat you because you're going to talk to 10 and recruit 3. He said, I'm going to talk to 100 and recruit 10. So it's just a game of numbers. I've always just looked at it as a game of numbers. And so I'm not much better than most people in our industry. There's people that are better. Like I would say you're probably way better at talking to people and engaging with them and doing the things that you do, and plenty of other great network marketers are. I just crank through so many numbers. My motto is like, nobody on my team's going to outwork me. I'm going to talk to more people than anybody else. And the good news is anybody can do that. Not everybody's going to be a good looking person. Not everybody's going to have an extroverted personality, but you don't need all that if you're willing to make up for what you lack in numbers.
I love it. You make up in numbers what you lack in skill. You're running the numbers, and obviously the results speak for themselves. And everybody can do that. Doesn't matter where you are right now on the journey. You can take Brian's example and apply it in your own world and get a similar result. Transitioning to kind of like the team building side of things. So you mentioned that permission slip. They come in the front door. In today's day and age, the climate we're in, especially this year, I would say trust is kind of like a big conversation, and maybe in most environments, kind of the lack thereof. So I'm curious, like your perception on just the topic of like, how do you build trust within your team, within your community, to kind of earn that right to lead them?
Let me start by answering that. For that answer, that question could be also addressed towards how do you earn it towards your prospects in the attraction process, along with how do you do that within your team that you're building. In the attraction process, everybody's already heard this before. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. But if you've got a stranger, they don't know you, they don't like you, and they don't trust you. So immediately in that first conversation, they're not going to really know you and they're not going to trust you. But you can get them to like you pretty quickly. If you are acting interested in them, ask them questions about them, act like you care about them, pretty quickly they'll like you, which will buy you the time that you can build rapport and get them to know and trust you. There are two different ways that I recruit people. I used to call it the GAP method, which was grab a pen. And I would call people up on the phone. I would say, hey, it's Brian Carruthers. You're interested in a home-based business. Like, I would work leads, for example, people that are looking to start a home-based business from home. So I would call them up. I would say, hey, Blake, hey, it's Brian Carruthers. We never met, but you were interested in our company's work from home program. I wanted to get back to you as soon as I could. And so I want to get you some information. Can you grab a pen real quick? And you would grab a pen. And I say, all right, write down this phone number and listen to the recorded overview that explains what we're all about. It'll take about 10 minutes and we'll talk afterward. So that's how I recruited a lot of people, the GAP method. It was speed, baby, speed, like get on and off the phone. Just get them in front of the information, a third-party tool. Back then it was a conference call. Now it's like a video, or now it's inviting them to a Zoom or whatever. But it was real quick, no time to build rapport. I didn't get to know them. They didn't get to know me. I just speed going through the numbers. That's one approach, and it's still effective. The other one that you're talking about is slowing down to speed up, which is the rapport approach. Slowing down, share your story with them, ask them what their story is, and stop selling, start solving, stop recruiting, start solving. You can't solve a problem in their life if you don't know what it is. And the other thing is, you don't want to pick on their problems and you don't want to make them feel bad. So the way that I learn and the way I teach people to do it is craft your story in a humble, vulnerable way where you say, hey, here's what was wrong in my life. Can you relate? Have you ever felt that way? Lack of time, lack of money, whatever. And you're seeking me too. And as soon as you got them saying or thinking, yeah, I feel you, brother. Yeah, I can relate to that. Well, so here's what I had to do. I found a mentor and I'm now working on a project. And I've never felt this excited about my future, ever. I finally found a solution to that problem. You want to see what I found? How in the world are they going to say, I got the same problem as you, but I don't want to see your solution? So when you can craft your vulnerable story, you appeal to their heart. They feel bad for you and they can relate because they feel the same way. And now when you introduce your opportunity to them, they want to see it. They want to hear it versus you just throwing an opportunity in front of them when they weren't even looking for something. They don't know why they would need something, and then they shut you down right away. So you got to open up their door of receptivity by using a vulnerable story of your own.
So good. Well, keep going. So like that's trust on the recruiting side. So they come through the door, you're building a team. You now have led hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs. So same question on the leadership side. And any insights, any tips, any lessons when it comes to leading and moving people?
My good friend Darnell Self, I think you might know Darnell or have heard of him, but he and I did a training several years ago. We called it the Network Marketing Leadership Academy. And it took us literally 6 hours to cover the topic of leadership in our industry. And there are basically 3 components to it. First, you have to become a leader that people want to join. Then you have to become a leader that people want to follow. And then you become a leader who develops other leaders. And it literally took us 6 hours to convey everything inside of all that. So in a nutshell, in like 2 minutes or less, becoming a leader who people want to join is not just recruiting. Because like I already showed you guys, I just explained, I could recruit Blake by asking him to grab a pen and writing down a phone number, or nowadays saying, hey, I'm gonna text you a link, watch it, and let's talk after. And he watches a video, he likes it, he calls me, I talk to him after, he says, I'm in, sign me up. Was I a leader that he wanted to join? He still knows nothing about me, but I was still able to recruit him. So there are recruiting tactics that do not require you to be a leader that people want to join. But soon enough, whether it's in the onboarding process, the launch process, at some point, they're going to need to learn who you are to decide if if you're somebody that they truly want to hitch their wagon to. So becoming a leader that people want to join, then becoming a leader that people want to follow. Now, you'll know if you're a leader that people want to follow. If you're a network marketer right now, look behind you. Like, is there anybody there? If there's nobody there, then you're not a leader that people want to follow. Now, sometimes this bums people out. They're like, oh, well, because here's the thing, Blake, we throw around the word leader in our industry all the time wrongly. Like, just because somebody's in the business and has 10 people in a downline does not mean they're a leader. It means they're a distributor with 10 distributors under them. They're not, well, let's split hairs. It could be a leader because we're always leading by our example, but they might be a bad example. They might be a bad leader. Like, they're not doing anything to help their team. So they're leading poorly. They might be leading, but they're leading poorly. So becoming a leader that people would want to follow, I'm a big believer in exampleship. And that's why people say, Brian, you're the number one earner in your company. You've recruited all these people. You built such a big team. You got all this income coming in. You don't need to do it anymore. Why are you still one of the top recruiters 25 years in? You know, I recruited 10 people every month at minimum for my first 10 years in my company. Wow. And last year I recruited like, I don't know, for the year, I think it was like 64 recruits for the year, something like that, when a lot of people never do that in their whole career. And so why? It's because I'm a big believer in people would rather watch a leader than to listen to one. I can get up on stage and tell people what to go do because I know how it works, but I'd rather get up on stage and say, hey, let me tell you a story about so-and-so who, here's how I just recruited her 2 days ago. Here's how I launched her last night. Here's how she just got her fast start bonus. I want to be relevant. I always want to stay relevant. I think I can help more people become successful by staying relevant, by staying in the trenches. So becoming a leader that people want to follow. Why would somebody want to follow you? And also personal development plays into that because look, whatever goes in comes out. Like, when you open your mouth, do you sound like a leader? Well, if you're not listening to the right audios and reading the right books and attending the right events and getting around the right people, if your associations and your content intake is not making you sound smarter and lead better and be more equipped to help others, then that's where you should start. Like, decide. Success is a decision followed by daily choices. Make a decision to lose weight. Okay. That means to eat less and work out more. Make a decision to be a better leader. It means to intake more and give more. So do you have value to give? And are you intent on giving it constantly? And then becoming a leader that develops other leaders, teaching people how to do the process you just went through. And that's where you separate yourself from being a big earner and then being legendary. You want to be a legend, develop a lot of big earners, but you can't do it if you can't teach it if you haven't done it.
You mentioned staying relevant. 25 years for you. And not only 25 years, like, it's one thing to hit the top. It's another thing to stay at the top. It's a totally different thing to hit the top, stay at the top, and stay there consistently for 25 years and still be doing, right, all of the things you're doing personally today when financially you don't have to. So I'm curious, like, reinvention. What have you done? What are the secrets? Take us to maybe some of those seasons of change or seasons of shift. Like, what tips do you give or have you learned when it comes to staying relevant or constantly reinventing yourself so you are today?
So I always want to keeping a good example on the basics and the tactics and building of the business. One of the things I wanted to do all the way from at the very beginning was not just show people an opportunity to get in and make money. Making money and blowing money and churning and burning is what I see a lot of network marketers doing. So there was a solution that needed to be found for that. That's why I wrote my money mindset book. And I've got a lot of big names in the industry that have told me over the last several years after they got the book in their hands and read it, they're like, this has been the missing ingredient in our industry because I've got a lot of friends that have made millions in network marketing and they don't have millions to show for it. Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm most proud of is that my net worth exceeds my cumulative lifetime earnings of my life.
Oh, wow. Explain what that means, just for those people that maybe aren't kind of financially sound. What do you mean by that?
I'm not going to give exact numbers, but let's say,
conceptually,
let's say I've earned 30 million, mm-hmm. but I'm worth 50 million right now. Mm-hmm. See, most people, they earn 30 and they pay taxes, spend money on living, mm-hmm. blow the rest, and they might have little to none left. Mm-hmm. So I want people to get into network marketing to have another income stream coming in that they can use to invest that money. Like Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank always said, I want to send my money out in the world, have it come back with friends. Like mm-hmm. I want people, look, don't tell me about how much money you're making. At the end of the year, what do you have left to show for it? I don't want people making a bunch of money and then at the end of the year, look at their balance sheet and it hasn't changed at all. And I see most people are in that place where it's not changing. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, I've always been a big believer in, it's got to be a holistic outlook. Like, let me show somebody a business opportunity where they can get in and make money. Then I'm going to educate them on, obviously they need to get a tax accountant. That's not who I am. I'm not a tax accountant, so I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not a licensed, financial planner. I'm not a licensed broker dealer, so I don't give investing advice. So that's my disclaimer I always give. I'll give it right now. But conceptually, I want people to figure out how to pay the least amount of taxes, pay the right taxes, don't avoid taxes, don't do the wrong thing. I'm not a believer in bankruptcy. You borrowed the money, you pay it back. Don't try to get out of that. But on the investment side, figure out what to do with your money. And, the 10-10-80 formula is where everybody should begin. Give God back 10% of the money that was already his in the first place. I'm a Christian, so that's just kind of how I'm wired. So give 10% to God or a charity. Pay yourself 10%. That's going to go into your investment account that you're going to use for your wealth building, and then live off the other 80. Even if you're broke, you still got to do the 10-10-80. But then as your income grows, don't keep on growing the 80. Like, if you go from 50,000 a year to $250,000 a year in earnings, you don't need to spend that much more money on buying stuff and spending stuff. Maybe give more and invest more. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, I hope that people will. I believe that's why I wrote in the Money Mindset book. If people knew what they were going to do with the money before they make it in their business, then they'll be more motivated to go do the work to make the money because they already know the outcome, their life that's going to change on the backside of that. If you are a network marketer and you're working your butt off for 3 or 4 years and you made money all along the way, and then you look at your net worth right now, 4 years in, and you're discouraged and you got nothing much to show for it, how long are you going to keep on doing what you're doing? Eventually, you're going to say, this is not worth it, and you're going to quit network marketing. Or you're going to think it's the network marketing's fault. But it's really yours. Like, you were not a good steward of the money when it came in the front door. I want people to be 4 years in and look at their bank account and be like, hey, I made an extra 50 grand a year in my network marketing business. So over the last 4 years, I made 200 grand. And my net worth is 200,000 more or 150,000 more. Or heck, if they did well with their investments, 400 grand more. Like, I want them to be getting ahead, not just spinning their wheels in the mud.
Net worth greater than net income. Brian, I really hope everybody listening to this just takes that advice and does exactly what you say. Really create a vision of where the money's going before they make it and having a plan. I love that 10-10, right, 80 framework. Such great advice, no matter where you're at in the journey. 25 years, Brian, that's perspective, right? You've been through highs, lows, ups, downs, change shifts, seasons, right? All the things. What are you seeing right now? Where you sit today? With a massive team, a thriving community, you're a respected legend, icon, thought leader within the space. You're an entrepreneur, investor outside the space. We're in a season of shift, kind of pun intended. Like, what are you seeing within our channel today? What are the key shifts? What's happening, and what are you doing to lead your community through it?
The tools or technology might change, but the process is everlasting, evergreen. You still have to pique somebody's interest, whether you're doing it online or offline, warm market or cold market, piquing somebody's interest, seeing if they are interested in looking at your product or your opportunity. It still needs to happen. They still need to actually see the presentation, however that's going to be, in person, online, virtual, your AI avatar doing it. I don't care how it's going to happen. They still need a presentation. They still need to actually get some questions answered by a third-party edified expert to close them so that it's a duplicatable process. You might be a great closer, but if it's first party instead of third party, they're going to try to be like you and they're going to fail, so it won't duplicate. So the third party and that whole process is timeless. It's always going to be what works really, really well. And think about it. If that was not needed, then the companies wouldn't need us as network marketers to be the voices, to be the third-party experts that we're using each other for. They would just go directly advertise themselves. That channel or that option has always been there for anybody that has a product or service to bring to the marketplace. Why did they choose network marketing? Because the brilliance of the model.
I do want to leave a minute for some closing thoughts and anything on your mind or your heart that we haven't covered. But before we go there, I'm going to ask you just like 3 rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answer. First thing that comes to your mind or your heart in like 1 sentence or less. Can we do that?
I can do it. I promise.
Okay, this is simple, right? So the concept of shift, right, is it's more than just the fact that we're in a season of shift in the world or in our channel. That's all true. But like, I think you get it in kind of the spirit of the questions I'm asking you. I've just been obsessed with the power of a mind shift and how a single shift in perspective can really like change the trajectory of your entire life. And you've already, through all of your answers and stories, given us insight into kind of your shifts, so to speak, that have gotten you to where you are. But I'm just going to ask you directly to see what comes to mind. If you were to give us just one of the most significant mind shifts, belief shifts, perspective shifts, you went from thinking this to thinking this, that has helped you in your professional life today, get to where you are today professionally, what shift comes to mind?
And this is for everybody, not just somebody of the same faith as me, but whatever your faith is or whatever your higher calling is, finding a way to get in alignment with your higher calling or your faith and what you and I do as a professional in business. If you can find a way to not have to put one down to pick up the other and then put that one back down to go back to the other thing, if you can actually have your business and your spiritual or faith life aligned and you're doing them both at the same exact time. I just discovered that in the last 2 years. And so my mission is to make, I would say ungodly, but it's a faith thing. So a godly amount of massive money so I can serve higher purposes than just putting another watch on my wrist. And if you can get that alignment, you don't have the tug of war happening anymore, which is fatiguing. And you might not even know it's subconsciously happening to you. And I think you will be pulled farther, faster than ever in your life.
Second question, same question, just in your personal life.
Personal life, I am navigating how to be a more present dad, a more present husband, when I'm wired to chase my business goals for so many years. And then you add a wife in and you add kids in. And here's something I think is important. One of the reasons why I still do what I do at the level I do it at, I don't want my kids being raised in a family where dad somehow, before I was born, made a bunch of money, and now all I ever see him do is fish and play golf and hang out. Mm-hmm. Like, I learned work ethic from my parents that served me very well. I want my kids to watch dad still working hard so that they can actually have that benefit in their lives.
And last kind of rapid fire is more of a visionary question. You look at the power of our entire channel, the companies and more so the communities of entrepreneurs we represent. Like, if you could give a gift right now, snap your fingers and give every single entrepreneur within the direct selling channel a belief shift, what gift would you give them?
I've been telling people in this language, your prospects don't need to believe in your company or your product or opportunity. They just need to believe that you believe. If they believe that you believe, you've got credibility with them and they will hear you out. And then sales is a transfer of belief. So you got to work on your belief. There are too many stories that you can go find online, inside of your company, outside of your company, that you can say, oh my gosh, how many thousands of people over the last few decades have been making 6 or 7 figure incomes? And if they can do it, you can do it. Don't get down on yourself. Don't get comparisonitis, and because comparison is the thief of joy. It's easy to look at all those examples and get inspired. It's also easy to look at all those examples and be like, oh, woe is me. I'm horrible. I haven't done much. Just go get inspired by the people that have already shown you. They've proven the model. So the model works. Stop doubting the model. Fall in love with your company mission. Believe in your company mission. And then borrow my belief in you. I believe God put greatness inside of you. He didn't skip over you when he made all the rest of us. It's you got in you what you need. Borrow my belief until one day you send me a message out of the blue and say, Brian, I watched that podcast with you and Blake, and gosh darn it, here I am now. I want to hear that story from you.
Brian, you've been so generous with your time. I appreciate going a little long today. And I just had to, because there's so much that you've experienced that I know can make an impact on everybody listening, regardless of where they are in their journey. And we've covered so much ground. But is there anything left kind of on your mind or your heart that we haven't covered that you want to leave with some closing thoughts before we round out?
Remember, I said one of the greatest recruiting training books of all time was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Mm-hmm. In there, he talks about how the greatest conversationalist, how, you go and get into a conversation with someone and you ask them a question about themselves, and people like to talk about themselves. And so you talk about how you get into a conversation and the other person does all the talking, and then they walk away from that conversation saying, oh my gosh, he or she was the greatest conversationalist ever. I love that person, but you didn't even say anything. They did all the talking. That's how I feel right now. Like you and I barely know each other. We just got acquainted at that event for literally minutes. Mm-hmm. For the last hour, you've been asking me questions about me. And I feel a connection and a vibe with you. I feel like we're now great friends. You didn't give me any insights about you. You asked me about me. You showed interest in me, and that's how you made me feel. So if you want to be a great recruiter or a great team leader, do more asking of great questions and do more listening and be more interested in other people, and you'll recruit more and you'll lead better. And that's how you're going to go where you want to go.
Well, Brian, I appreciate the kind words. I feel the same. And I know this is probably going to be the beginning of a relationship and an impact. But in the time today, you have been a gift. So thank you for giving it to us. Thank you for pouring into us, just unfiltered, vulnerable. And for everybody listening, this has been an absolute freaking masterclass in like every aspect. I mean, we got a little bit that you can apply today in every aspect of this business. I hope today's conversation inspires you to find that alignment, to find that thing that's going to drive you from the back, but pull you from the front, to give you the next steps, whether it be recruiting or attraction or team building or leading, or really just adopting the financial intelligent basics that Brian said that's going to save you and allow you to reinvent and have longevity like he has. And one thing I know is today has been tremendous value, and I know it can impact others. So take the time to share this. That's why we're here. It's the only reason we're here, is to serve, to impact, to raise the level of consciousness within the entrepreneurs across this entire channel, and to make a difference. You can find us in all the places, shiftpodcast.com. Share whatever favorite platform, whether you want to listen to Brian on Spotify or Audible or Apple. I recommend YouTube. You got to be able to see and feel the energy and watch us all there. Thank you guys for all your time and your energy. And let's make the shift. Brian, thank you for everything today.
It was great to be here. Thank you, man.